Can we cue the video? So thank you, everybody. I just got off the plane yesterday at 5:30 from San Francisco. I thought I'd put our talk in context because that's a staff of about 30 people, and I'm going to show you about 20 projects. And I think the interesting thing is that a normal day in our practice, they're probably working on 10. Each person is probably working 5 to 10 projects, and they're all in various stages. And I hope my conversation dovetails into what we were talking earlier this afternoon about modern workplaces. The first slide I'm going to show you is actually of a space that we had Worktech California at. It's called Evernote. It's a facility that we just opened up, and this floor plan is pretty illustrative of the way we approach workplace. The lower level, which is on the left-hand side, is actually all conferencing meeting space. Our town halls down there, our kitchens down there. So we've set this up by design so that there is a place that they can go to. There will be places adjacent, but this is the main floor. And the kitchen to the right, I'm going to show you more examples of that. We call that town hall in our off-workplace topologies. And then the workplace is very much open plan. You notice that all the individual offices that are on the perimeter are conferencing spaces. They're actually not occupied by individuals. So to begin, we've developed for today's talk, because we actually never knew how many topologies we had, there's 10 topologies in the workplace that we're doing in projects today. And there are variants of that topology. So to address the needs of the modern worker in the tech in the valley, these are the things that we've had to come up with. A lot of this is just through experimentation. The Valley is real famous for innovative thought. They're not looking to do what other companies have done. In fact, every single time, I haven't heard it from, all entrepreneurs feel like they're changing the world. So what do you do with an individual like that? So you want to create a space that is custom to them and is specific to their work style. So a lot of what we talked about this morning is exactly that. It's happening, we're testing it, and also older companies that are more mature who want to hit reset are testing it. So we're doing pilot programs in your more older companies or more mature companies. And it's going cross-segment. It's not just technology. We work in media, we work in retail, we work in banking, finance. All of these various types of business are realizing that the workplace needs to change in order to usher in the new economy. So town hall is quite simply this. When you think of a kitchen or a sort of a welcoming environment, town hall is what we put kind of at the front of most of our projects. In fact, they're very close to the lobby. The idea is that when the potential employee or somebody is being introduced into your culture, they understand that this is a welcoming environment. So actually, this is where we had the Worktech conference in California. The tables go away. It becomes a little area, actually becomes a big area for town hall type meetings, for impromptu meetings. Lunch and learns and lectures are very popular in the Valley these days. In fact, it's not uncommon that somebody from your company will come and talk about what they did on the weekend, or they'll bring in a scientist from Stanford. So this ongoing learning, not education, is very important to set up in the environments, and you have to have a place for it. This is a much smaller scale. This is probably more typical, is that you have maybe a 500 square foot area that you can dedicate. And you can see this is actually doing many different things. We've got the ping pong table. These engineers had to have a ping pong table, and it was a professional ping pong table. So we set up a little sort of a stadium seat behind it so people can sit and watch, and then behind them are little areas where you can essentially play games or read a book. This is AOL's town hall, and at the very end of it where the three red pendant lamps are, that's actually the kitchen. So we always try to associate food to these areas, because when you have a meeting and you have food, and in the case of AL, you have several types of beers, everybody comes to that meeting. Not everybody will show up at that meeting. So long are the days gone when you'd stick a break room in the worst part of the building and hope people would get coffee. You'd put a little refrigerator there, and you'd stock with a few things, but mostly it's for people to warm up. These are big elements in design today for us. A lot of companies like Facebook, AOL are serving 2 to 3 meals a day. And the idea is that we bring the people together so that they're not just going out for lunch and leaving the workplace. They're actually, hopefully, you're meeting somebody in HR, you're meeting somebody in engineering. You want them to cross-pollinate. You need to set up, we call it the watering hole, the one area in the building that they have to go to. So library is a topology we came up that addresses the open work plan and the noisiness that can happen in open plan. I mean, a lot of companies are like, well, I can't do that. Most of my employees we're multi-generational. We cannot have open plan, and it doesn't work. It's too noisy. In the Valley, you have younger guys or younger employees who are able to kind of put the headphones and filter out, or they get big enough monitors where they don't need cubes anymore and they work in benching. But we do need to provide a place, and we call this the library. Not that many companies have books. In fact, we had to doctor up the shop because we put the bookshelf in, and there were like one row of tech books, and it looked really, really awful. So interesting, these guys are entrepreneurs. They're from England. They all went to Oxford. So they wanted to create a place of kind of contemplative work or thinking. So we created the Oxford Library. So this is actually wallpaper on the sides, and some things that evoke quiet work, the wingback chairs, the chalkboard. So we're also branding and talking about how people work and how they feel in a space. We want them to feel comfortable. And this is another company called Reputation.com in the Valley as well. Their version of a library is very different. Sort of the stand-up kiosk, everything's on a Kindle, and also a comfortable chair. This is actually at Microsoft. And this facility is a pilot for them that we developed. It's about 40,000 feet, and they're a very office-intensive culture. In fact, that's the way they typically hire. We needed to create a new workplace for them. So we created workplace strategies that employ the library. And you can see the individual offices are to the right. Workshop, I think, really describes a new shift that we talked about earlier this morning as well, is that it's a maker's culture. People work mostly on their computer all day long. We need to provide an area for them to do personal work. A lot of companies call this the 80-20 time, a place that you can actually, that's my wife in our workshop, most of the companies allow you to do personal work, but they also want you to get away from the computer and do something that is with your hands. So actually, this is a Microsoft facility where we have a bike shop right in the lobby, very close to kind of the common area. So you kind of, when you come in the morning, you park your bike. It's amazing. This is a gigantic campus, and they don't have bicycles. So we made sure it was a part of the design to enforce that idea that get on your bike, don't jump in your car to drive to one of these buildings. So we also put a bike shop there. Part of the 80-20 thing is that you work 80% on your company's business and 20% on personal business. A lot of clients understand that we can't just have them working on code all day long. They need to do some personal stuff. It breaks up their day. So this is actually a space, when you are in there, you're working on personal work as opposed to working on the company's work. And it's nice because when it shows that you are embracing that idea, that you really, really want them to explore working on their own work. Studio is a topology we came up because we found out that every time we had a client come over, they go, we want an office like this. And really, that function is built for design firms and architecture firms. But we're finding that more and more, our clients are very sophisticated in terms of design, and they like that aesthetic. So again, I'm going to show the home because it kind of ties into the design. This is actually at Samsung, and it's a studio where they bring in their engineers and their decision makers, and then they also bring out outside agencies like an IDEO or an Astro. We wanted a place that conversation would feel right in, and they didn't have this before. So you can see this is actually where they bring the product in as it enters America and it gets restyled. Another company called Square. This is the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey's new company. Very dense space, and you can see that we've created a high working area. This is what we're terming as studio. And then in reputation.com, the studio is really this lab aesthetic where you can see the unistrut walls, the high workstation. Again, it's talking of a different type of work style, which is very much what we do in architecture and design. It's a very studio look. Individual work areas have changed a lot over the years. We're doing less and less hard wall offices. We're doing more benching. You're going to see a variant on that because, as we know, we have multi-generational workplaces. So it's just not the 23-year-old whose coding is able to work in an open bench, which is this particular client called Ticketfly. So it's very open, typical benching type system. It's about a 30 by maybe 50 desk. And this is actually a Microsoft new standard that we've developed. Typically, along the window line, there'd be hard wall offices. Now we put them to the interior core, and we've created these very large workstations that are sit to stand. And two, you can set it up several different ways within this footprint. And this is actually the individual workstation at Microsoft that we've created at 6 by 8. It seems very tight, but actually the way it works is you get a full sit-to-stand 30 by 60 desk, whiteboard to the back, tack board to the right, and you can actually have one person come in and sit with you in there. And then you can pull up for co-developing. So somebody can pull up at your 30 by 60 desk and work in the station with you. And one other wrinkle to this is that these are you can't stay in this for a month. It's only bookable for a week. So we're trying to reinforce the open plan that, yes, if you need heads down work, we're going to provide that space for you, but we'd like you to work in the open plan. So their main station would be in the open plan. Think tanks are really one-on-one areas with the open plans and densities of 110, 80 square feet per person, which is what we're getting to. I mean, we're getting really, really dense to almost call center size in some of these workplaces. And a lot of it is dollar driven. In Silicon Valley, you're paying anywhere from $4 to $5 a square foot. So that real estate is very expensive. And you're finding a 4 or 5 year lease term, it's very expensive, so we need to really make it dense. But what do we do when we make it dense? We need to provide other spaces for them to work and meet. So the individual areas, these these individual rooms are essentially for you to make phone calls or have one-on-one meetings. So this room's probably 4 by 4 or 5 by 5. And you'll have many different size rooms in our typical plan, addressing small meeting spaces to large. This is actually a company called Reputation, where it was a law firm. We actually recycled all the doors back. These were actually walnut doors that were dark brown. We decided to paint them a different color and recycle them back in the project. But these are, again, the one-on-one rooms. Another small room. Shelters, we all like the open plan. We all like the private meeting spaces. We found that there's a need for not just lounge furniture sitting in a hallway, but actually this tertiary space that's in between hardwall office and sort of an open lounge space. So we call them shelters. And they can be simply constructed out of unistrut, such as you see here. They're not meant to be completely private. The idea is that you're going to duck out of the conversation and move into this space and be able to carry on a conversation without bothering somebody. But you keep the noise level down. It's very simple to get into, very simple to access. This is what it might look like. It just may have curtains around it and tack boards. In the instance of square, these are all lined with acoustical material, so actually you don't have a door on the front, but the sound as it goes in is absorbed in the material, so it's very quiet. So actually, once you pass the threshold into the entry of this shelter, it gets very quiet. So you can see people individually working in it or meeting in there. This is another one that we came up with I don't know if you're familiar with warehousing. You see these flaps that go in the warehouse doors that keep the cold air from rushing in. We essentially created a ring, and we stapled these to it and suspended it on threaded rod. And you can push through it. It actually has a acoustical rating. It doesn't have a roof. In some cases, we do put roofs on them, but this is another one of the tertiary meeting spaces that are very easy to get in and out of. You can enter from any side. Okay. Living room is the idea that the conversation during the day is going to be very formal and very informal. We want the varieties of conversation to happen. So the living room aesthetic is very successful in that way because it's a less guarded meeting, and we like to have this aesthetic as many places as we can so that you feel comfortable and have that type of conversation, a little more formal. This is Facebook, where we actually took a warehouse door where the trucks come in and create a living room right adjacent to it. War room has taken over. That's actually our boardroom these days. The war room, there's usually a couple of them. They're very formal. They have all the gear. Essentially, this is where you do your presentation. This is where the deals happen. So we still have them. They're still a part of the topology, but they're not the big item that they used to be because we create many more meeting spaces. And finally, since real estate is so expensive and leasing is kind of the first thing that an entrepreneur has to think about what he's paying for that space, we want to use the entire space. Technology has enabled us to work anywhere. With iPads, iPhones, you can direct business. So we want to use the entire common area. The pathways, we make them a little more gracious. We throw pieces of furniture, we put technology, we put whiteboard in the corridors. Even the coffee shops that we put into buildings are typically Wi-Fi enabled. We want people to come out of the office space. If we're doing a full retrofit of a building, we always increase the aisle width and we put common area amenities like this in them. Also, collaborative furniture is good to have around. This actual piece it's on wheels. It can move around anywhere in the building and you can sit and use it. This is actually an interesting shot. We have, when we shot this at Facebook, there were people on skateboards, and a lot of times you'd see them working on their skateboard going down the hallway with a laptop. So that's why it's good to have big hallways, because you're going to run into somebody. The communicating staircase is very big these days. Elevators, if you're on several floors, it's a tendency you don't want to have your employees go in the elevator, so we've created the staircase that actually has meeting space on it. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Primo. Absolutely fantastic, quick run through what's happening in Silicon Valley. The 10 typologies, I think, are really useful, and some very skillful ways in which you've managed to create shelters and think tanks and war rooms and living rooms. And it's thinking about the workplace in a new way and maybe finding some of the vocabulary to respond to some of the imperatives that our two keynote speakers before. So thank you very much indeed to Primo Orpilla.
Thank you.
Thank you.